in here likes to read novels, watch movies, or even listen to bedtime story? Pretty much all of us, right? But have you ever wondered why these stories always feel so easy to follow from the beginning until the end? Well, that's because every story actually has a structure. And today, in this video, we are going to dive into the structure of a narrative text. So the next time you read or write a story, you'll know the secret recipe behind it. So before getting into the main part, allow me to introduce myself. I am Raden Roro Belva. I am from XII.1, SMA 4 Kota Tangerang, and you can call me Belva. So without any further ado, let's delve into our material. Okay, so I'll begin with the definition of a narrative text. So what is a narrative text actually? A narrative text is a kind of text that tells a story. It can be based on true events, completely made up, or even a mix of both. The main purpose of a narrative text is to entertain and sometimes to inform or teach a moral lesson. A narrative text usually presents a sequence of events that are connected by characters, conflict, and a meaningful resolution. When it's done right, it pulls the reader into another world where they can feel, think, and imagine right alongside the characters. Think of your favorite stories, everyone, whether it's Harry Potter, The Lion King, or a childhood tale told by your grandparents, and etc. They're all narrative texts. So, based on what I have said earlier, the more examples of narrative texts are fairy tales, mysteries, horror stories, even science fiction or sci-fi, or a romance, and many more. For me, personally, this text is the most fun to study because it lets my imagination to run free. I can enter different worlds and feel the emotions of the characters and even experience adventures that don't exist in real life. Unlike factual text, narrative text gives me both knowledge and entertainment, making the learning process more fun and enjoyable. Okay, the first structure of the narrative text is an orientation. So orientation is located in the first paragraph of a text, and which states that it is the opening section of a narrative text. Okay, so this section, which is orientation, it introduces the characters and setting of the story, including the place, time, atmosphere, and social situation. And it actually began with the time signal, like once upon a time, or like long ago, like that is the beginning of the story, and it's called an orientation. So by reading the orientation, the readers can get a preliminary illustration of the story. Like we can get the clear introduction, like where who are the characters and where is it taking place, or when is it happening, and etc. So to be more clearer, let's look at the example of the orientation. Once upon a time, in a small village near the forest, there lived a kind girl named Lila. She loved exploring nature and always helped her neighbors. So by reading this, we have a couple of informations. The first information is that we know where the event occurred. It is mentioned that it occurred in a small village near the forest, and we also know by reading this passage, the main character of the story is a girl named Lila. What is she like? She is a kind girl and loved exploring nature and always helped her neighbors. So that's the function of the orientation actually. It is to give the readers like the preliminary or the beginning impression of the story. The next one is the complication. It is a part where the problem arises, conflict occurs, which the characters do not expect. So in this part, the suspense of the story is actually beginning to arise. It hasn't reached the climax yet, but it is a part where the conflict is starting to show. For the example, let me read this. One day, while walking in the forest, Layla heard a strange cry. She followed the sound and found a little fox trapped in a hunter's net. The fox looked weak and frightened. So, what do you guys feel after reading this paragraph? I think most of you will be curious what will happen next, and that is actually the purpose of the complication, and also the characteristic of the complication, which gives the readers a sense of curiosity. So after a complication, the after leaving us curious, so we need like a validation, right? So it is actually answered in the next structure, which is evaluation. This is when the thrill and the suspense is at the max, as at the highest point, or we call it a climax, where I can get a definition for the evaluation is like the suspense of the events that is occurring is in the evaluation part, which makes the readers want to find out what will happen. So to be more clear, here is the example of an evaluation. Layla knew it was dangerous to touch a wild animal, but she also couldn't leave it there. Her heart raced as she wondered whether the hunter would come back or if the fox might hurt her. So, what occurred in my mind after reading this passage is that would she help the fox or not? After leaving our curiosity, here is the ending part. It is a resolution, which is a part where the problem is solved, where the questions answered. And this is the part where the story ends, actually. And the story can end with a happy ending, a sad ending, or I think it's the most annoying for the most people is that a cliffhanger. So for the example of the resolution is that gathering her courage, Layla carefully cut her net with a small knife. And the fox jumped free, wagged its tail, and ran into the forest. So our questions been answered in the resolution part. Last minute, I was wondering whether she would leave or help the fox, but in the resolution, it is answered. She finally cut the net with her small knife. And the last part of the narrative text in the structure is the coda. The coda is the closing part that gives a short comment about the story or the character's future. So this coda can be stated into only one paragraph, and it is located on the last text, on the last paragraph. So for the example of coda is that from that day on, whenever Layla walked into the woods, the fox sometimes appeared as if to greet her. She believed their friendship would last forever. What a happy ending and a nice closing, right? Okay, so now that we have learned the structure of a narrative text, you may ask, what is the benefit of, is it beneficial to learn the structure of narrative text? For me, learning the structure of a narrative text is beneficial because it helps us understand how stories are built and why each part is important. By knowing the roles of orientation, complication, evaluation, resolution, and coda, we can follow the story more easily and see how the events are connected. It also guides us in writing our own stories in a clear and organized way, making them more interesting and enjoyable to read. Moreover, understanding the structure improves our critical thinking since we learn to identify problems, conflicts, and solutions in different situations. I hope you can enjoy studying narrative text as much as I do, or even more. Thank you for listening, and sorry if there were any mistakes in my explanation. Thank you!